No matter how healthy you are, you're going to lose your hormones. They're eventually going to go away. Maybe we can delay menopause. Maybe we can prolong the life of our ovaries, which is, I think, a really, really good thing. But eventually they'll go. But it's good to be healthy anyway. So do your best. Now, what does the science say about hormone therapy for asymptomatic women or for prevention? They don't recommend it. I just went to the European Menopause and Andropause Society Congress a couple months ago, and it was so clear. It was research after research and presentation after presentation of what happens to your heart, your brain, your boobs, your vagina, everything. What happens when we lose our estrogen? It's like all doom and gloom. Are you in peri or postmenopause and you don't feel anything? You got no hot flashes, no night sweats, mood swings, libido is pretty good, but you're hearing about all the quote unquote protective benefits of hormone replacement therapy and worried that you may miss out on this window of opportunity. And you're not really sure. Should you be taking hormone therapy? Should you not? You're totally confused. Well, you're not alone. It's really clear when you have symptoms, like, great, you can explore this world. But if you don't, the path is not so clear. And today's episode is for the asymptomatic woman who is in midlife, who's wondering if hormone replacement therapy is really still relevant for her or not. And it's a really confusing space because most menopause societies around the world, they're very clear on their statements that it's about managing symptoms. And most doctors are like that. If you're lucky, because there are a lot of doctors out there, you can say, I'm suffering, I don't feel good, and they will not prescribe you hormone therapy. They will just say, well, it's part of menopause, just white knuckle your way through it. It's normal, it's aging, et cetera, et cetera. But if you have a doctor who's open-minded, well, yeah, it's an option. And it's very clear from the research that hormone replacement therapy is very effective for managing symptoms, and you don't need a lot. But you don't hear a lot of stories about women who feel great during this transition, who are just sailing right through it. And yet they're still considering hormone therapy, right? I want you to keep in mind that just because you don't feel anything doesn't mean that things are not happening and changing under the hood. I've met many women who I do interviews with around the world, and they are in their 60s and they say, menopause? No, I didn't go through menopause. I'm like, well, do you still have your period? And they're like, no. So they are clearly in menopause and they're postmenopausal. They didn't feel anything, but it doesn't mean that it didn't happen, right? Just to share a little background in me, I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people who didn't feel the major symptoms, but I do have a deep concern about my future self and my long-term health. In retrospect, now I see, oh, actually, I did have some menopausal symptoms. I just didn't quite realize them. And that's me thinking back to my 30s and 40s when I didn't even know what the word perimenopause was. But I started to explore the world of hormones when I was 50, and I'm now 55. And that's when I went to my GP. I said, hey, I'm looking for information on menopause and hormones, and it sounds like there's an opportunity here, and I don't want to fall off a cliff. I want to have a smooth transition, and I'm thinking hormones may be a great add-on right now, and I don't know how to do it. I don't know if it's a gradual thing. I knew nothing at the time, and she said, well, do you have any symptoms? I said, nope. Not that I know of. Of course, I only knew like 3 symptoms. And then she said, well, she knew my family history. My mother died of breast cancer. My father died of heart disease. And that was like, nah, I don't think this is a good thing for you. And I dug deeper and deeper and learned more. And I said, now I need to find a menopause doctor. I need to find an expert. So I wound up speaking probably up to this point, maybe 5 menopause doctors who were treating me at some point and giving me some guidance. And then I've spoken to dozens of others about myself, maybe less officially, but maybe they looked at my Dutch tests, or maybe they've given me a little bit of advice, maybe know a little bit of background. But every time I consult with a doctor who can prescribe hormones, they look at my family history, and I tell them, I don't care if I take hormones or don't take hormones. I just want the best for me. And I'm concerned about my breast health, considering I had a mother who had it and she died of it on top of it. So you just tell me what I should be doing. And they all agreed that I should be taking hormone replacement therapy, Bioidentical. And And that's not for everybody. And especially if you go in very concerned, very worried, and you heard all the horror stories, and then maybe you have a different history than mine, then of course, this is a discussion you should have with your doctor. And I'm going to explain to you how to navigate this space. And just because I've done this doesn't mean you should. And I don't want to convince anyone of taking hormone therapy or not. I just want to give you some things to think about that may help you make that decision, and then what to do too if you want to skip it as well, because there's a lot of things we need to do whether we take hormones or we don't take hormones. So when you think about the asymptomatic woman, why are some women not feeling anything? And why do some women feel everything under the sun? Well, most of the time it's due to your genetics, but not every time. You can look at your mom and what she was going through, and maybe you're likely to have that. I do remember my mom going through menopause, and I remember she was suffering. I remember she had hot flashes. I remember she was always trying to lose those last 5, 10 pounds. And she wasn't so really overweight, but she was always struggling a little bit with that menopause weight gain. And so I am clearly not having the same menopause experience as my own mother. And why is that, right? Well, sometimes our genes are programmed to decline gradually. Sometimes it's very abrupt. Sometimes it's a medical menopause, or maybe it's some very traumatic event in your life. And this is going to make your menopause journey more difficult, more severe symptoms. And then there's sometimes women also have some pretty resilient estrogen receptors. And again, this may be genetic, maybe just the way you're programmed. And those estrogen receptors help them adjust to any of the fluctuations, as well as things that are being bombarded to our estrogen receptors on a daily basis. And they may have an easier or a harder time if they're less resilient. Then there's the women with really good metabolic flexibility, stable blood sugar, low inflammation. I'm in that camp. And these women tend to report fewer symptoms. And then you also want to look at your hormone metabolism, right? Your gut microbiome, your liver, how are they detoxifying these hormones? That can also weigh heavily on your experience. And then there's a lot of research actually showing that women who have a really great social support or a network of their partners really supportive, really understanding, or the people around them, maybe they have a really good doctor, they have a positive attitude towards menopause. These women report fewer symptoms. Okay. We don't know if they actually have fewer symptoms. It just seems that they complain less about it, or it doesn't bother them as much. However, we do have to keep in mind that even if we have all of the things in place in terms of our diet, our exercise, our lifestyle, we're not smoking, we're not drinking, we're doing all the right things, we can still have very severe menopausal symptoms, right? And we have women who are doing all the quote unquote wrong things, and they're just sailing through menopause as if nothing happened. It's never just because you're healthy and you're trying to do all the right things isn't a guarantee that you're going to have a smooth transition. It certainly helps. I've seen it over and over again. It can help for sure, but it's not a guarantee. And so, no matter how healthy you are, you're going to lose your hormones. They're eventually going to go away. Maybe we can delay menopause. Maybe we can prolong the life of our ovaries, which is, I think, a really, really good thing. But eventually they'll go. But it's good to be healthy anyway. So do your best. Now, what does the science say about hormone therapy for asymptomatic women or for prevention? They don't recommend it. Most of them will say even though, I just went to the European Menopause and Andropause Society Congress a couple months ago, and it was so clear. It was research after research and presentation after presentation of what happens to your heart, your brain, your boobs, your vagina, everything. What happens when we lose our estrogen? It's like all doom and gloom. So they're presenting all this stuff, and your bones are going to get brittle, but yet they don't recommend hormone therapy for prevention alone. Even with all the preventative benefits that we're seeing, they're real, but the data isn't strong enough for them to all agree on that. And I think the key word here is that hormone therapy on its own to use this for an asymptomatic woman. And I tend to agree with that in the sense that I always say you can't out hormone a bad diet and lifestyle, right? If you're going to go on hormones, especially if you're going to go on them, like, boy, you need to make sure that you detox them well. You make sure you have a good, healthy lifestyle. You need to get your life in order regardless of hormones or no hormones. I think you're really much better off if you're looking for brain protection. Hormones alone, I don't know. Like the research looks good, but alone, you're probably going to be better off if you're taking hormones with some brain training, with some challenging brain exercises. And I'm meaning like learn a new language or learn how to play the flute or travel or do things that are hard for your brain, right? Those are really, really important. The research is still evolving it's just too slow. For me personally, it's too slow. Maybe by the time I'm 85, we're going to have some definitive guidelines for people like me and like you who are asymptomatic. I can't wait until then. And you can't wait. So you have to make a decision, whatever that is. Now, you may have heard of that window of opportunity, and that's this pressure that we're having. That's why it's so hard. Do I go on this? Do I not go on this? If I miss this, I can't reverse it. I can't go back in time. If I take it and it's the wrong decision, then I'll regret it. I hear you. This is the same conversations that I've had in my head over and over again. What doctors will generally tell you, and what are the menopause guidelines? They'll say hormone therapy within 10 years of menopause or before the age of 60 may offer some more benefits and less risk. I think most people have agreed on that. That's pretty awesome to hear. Okay. So if you are symptomatic, it's quite clear. But if you are over the age of 60 and 10 years post-menopause, it's not recommended. Through my training with the Institute of Bioidentical Medicine with Dr. David Rosensweet, this is the menopause method that we've done. He was teaching doctors. They allowed me to take the course, so that was super interesting. He was saying, no, you can treat a woman if she wants to go on hormone therapy and she still can benefit from it, but you got to do it differently. You can't just do it like everyone else. So obviously doctors need to be trained in this. And if they're not, they're barely trained in a quote unquote normal woman or a woman who's in perimenopause. Barely. How are they going to treat a woman who's postmenopause, especially when the guidelines say this? And the guidelines say this because they say a woman who has not seen estrogen for a very long time, there has been a very long time, meaning 10 years postmenopause, there has already been a plaque buildup in her arteries. Okay. We know through the research, this is what happens. This is like, yes, you're on your way to cardiovascular disease. And it's happening quite fast because of the loss of the estrogen. And when you bring estrogen in, they're afraid that it can destabilize those plaques. Like they're going to pop out and travel through the bloodstream, cause a stroke or a blood clot. And they're not ready for this. They're afraid. But a menopause doctor who's trained, we'll have to look at your history. I always say it's never say never. It's never too late. You just need to find the right doctor who can help you through this. And maybe you aren't a candidate. I don't know. That's for you to talk about with the doctor. But for most women, at least this is again with my training with Dr. Rosensweet, he was like, yes, there's always a way. So when you are taking hormone therapy, when you're closer to menopause, like just before or certainly close after, you can slow the progression of that plaque buildup and have some of the protective benefits. And when you are talking to your doctor about things like this, just remember oral estrogen, especially in older women, has been linked to a higher risk of strokes and blood clots. And so that's why doctors kind of go, well, at least the ones who are trained in menopause, like, all right, let's just avoid that. And let's go for the transdermal, meaning a cream, patch, gel, things like that. And also, I'm not going to go into the Women's Health Initiative study. That's like almost like a whole other podcast. But that study's been debunked in many ways, but there are some really interesting things that came out of that too. And we have to keep in mind of what kind of hormones that were being used back then versus what's now. The average age of the woman in that study was 62. We're not talking about women who are younger, perhaps like you. So not only were they older, but they also were more asymptomatic, these women. I just don't know why. Like the women weren't, I guess, oh, I know, because it makes sense. Obviously, if the average age is 62, most of the time you're post menopause. The average age of menopause, especially we're talking about a US study, is 51. It's a lot younger in other parts of the world. But if you're already in your 60s, you probably have already stabilized, probably don't have that many symptoms anymore, which just doesn't make any sense, right? And these women were not really looking for relief from their symptoms, but okay, they were included in the study. And a lot of these women were metabolically unhealthy in the first place. They were obese, they had high blood pressure, they had really bad blood markers for cardiovascular health, they were sedentary. I think it was 35% of them were classified as obese. And yeah, I'm just not sure if this really reflects the women who are actually considering hormone therapy right now. And that's why one of the reasons why it's been debunked. Yeah, the WHO didn't really study women like us. It studied women who were just starting HRT for the first time in their 60s. So we got some data there, and they didn't really look at, they didn't look obviously at bioidentical hormones because it wasn't there. So there's a lot of things that still need to be done in women's research for menopause. So anyways, let's move on. I'm trying to think, what was I talking about? The window of opportunity. That's what it was. So yeah. So if you are over the age of 60 or 10 years past menopause, I would say don't fret. Find the good menopause doctor. And if you're younger, okay, let's consider what does it mean to be protective? And I'm really careful with this word protective. I don't like it. I don't like it when I hear it on other podcasts or even when a doctor speak to me. I try to correct myself if I ever use it because it makes it sound like hormone therapy alone will protect your bones, your brain, your vagina, your heart, all that stuff. And we don't really need to do anything else. And that's not true. I think it's not a replacement for exercise, for proper nutrition, to manage our stress, to manage our sleep. It certainly helps. It's a fabulous tool, especially if you are symptomatic or even have some osteopenia and also want to reverse some of that too. And again, it's not going to be the only thing. So I think a little bit too many women think that HRT is just like the be all end all. And that's a little bit misleading. So I try not to use the word protective. I try to use the word, it may lower the risk of X, Y, and Z. Okay, that's what the research is showing so far. And most of the research that was presented to me at these European Menopause and Andropause Society, for example, they're talking about the old school stuff, right? The oral estrogen. I don't like the word using synthetic hormones either, because a lot of people, you'll hear this on reels and things, they'll talk about natural bioidentical hormones, and then they'll talk about synthetic hormones. Like one is good, one is bad. And I don't think there's good and bad with anything. And we need to be clear. All hormones are made in a lab. They're all made, even the bioidenticals that are coming from a yam, right? From a food source. They're extracted, the components are extracted, and they're processed in a lab. So they're all kind of synthetic anyways, right? This is not your own body making its own hormones. However, when we say bioidentical versus synthetic, bioidentical means it's identical to the structure, the chemical structure of our own hormones, whereas the synthetic ones are not. And I don't think synthetic is necessarily bad, honestly. There's some women who do really well and who need it and are getting some great benefits from it. So when we say, ew, synthetic is conjugated equine estrogen, it's coming from a horse's urine, yuck. But it's coming from a horse. That's kind of a natural source, isn't it? I mean, honestly, I eat animals, and I guess to me, it doesn't seem as horrible as everyone thinks they do. They think it is. But anyways, not that I would like to take horse urine. It just seems to be demonized in so many ways. So let's clear that up. The research on bioidentical hormones is promising, but it's really limited. And I didn't see very much, although I have to admit in Europe that bioidentical, let's say estradiol, this is one type of estrogen, has been used for a long time, and progesterone, right? This is a quote unquote natural progesterone, the bioidentical progesterone has been more widely used in Europe than it has in the US. But it's still, again, just not enough research done on the bioidenticals versus the synthetic, versus types of dosing, types of delivery methods, rhythmic dosage, cyclic dosage, static dosing, all these different types of ways to take them. And you could take it as a gel, a spray, a patch, like what's better, how much. And we know it's not what you take, it's what you absorb that really matters. But there's just like a whole other, and then there's other people who are talking about, well, it's not what's in your blood, it's what's in your tissues. It's like a whole other conversation. So it can get really, really confused. But learn about it, learn more about it. And if you do decide that hormones are for you, I would highly encourage you to go down the bioidentical route. So far, so good. It looks good. Now, if you're still stuck and you're like, I don't know, I can't make a decision, I'm afraid, and it's real to be afraid. I understand. I was afraid for so long. Ever since my mom died, I was like, I'm never going to touch my hormones. Just let them be. And I am scared. And if there's anyone who's worried, it's me. So not making a decision is still a decision. I would say do your research. The best thing you can do is educate yourself, and you will find the answer that's right for you. Your gut will tell you, your intuition will tell you. And I want you to block out all the noise, including me if I'm noise. Be skeptical, question things critically, talk to your doctor, make that informed decision together, and make sure you get really good information. And again, what's good, what's bad, you're going to have to come up with that yourself. And if you decide you want to try hormone therapy, you can try it. You can always stop it if it doesn't feel right. And if you really say, you know what, it's just not for me, it's okay. Like, great. Honestly, do what feels right for you. I think a woman's intuition is so good and so strong and so important. You need to honor that. And if you choose not to, double down on all the other health strategies to protect your heart, your bone, your brain, your vagina, your muscles, everything that's important to you. If it's important to you. And again, if it's not important to you, I don't care. Like, this is your body, your life. You do what's right for you. But again, staying in limbo and doing nothing is not serving your future self. If, again, you're concerned about your 80-year-old self. And it's not what we do. We're not going to start doing all these things when we're in our 80s. We start taking care of ourselves earlier on. Longevity starts in childhood, right? There's things, of course, we can't go back to our childhood, but we can do things today, right? Our Alzheimer's doesn't start when you're 70. It starts 20 years before. Heart disease doesn't start when you're 70 either. So it starts long, long before. So if you are concerned about your future self, you take action now. So educate yourself. There's so many podcasts out there, books, there's the research. You can go to PubMed. Now, my goodness, you can go talk to Perplexity, which is like a chat GPT, a little bit more research based. You can really dwindle down, not that it's all accurate and 100%, but you can get an idea, right? And then go check out the free resources on the hackmyage.com website. There's a ton of freebies where I list all my favorite things, where I do my research. And after that, find a doctor who can support you, whether you do hormones or you not do hormones, right? It's always good to check, test, measure, and assess. That's what a biohacker does, right? So I have ways to find menopause doctors it's one of my freebies. And ask yourself the big questions. What are you optimizing for? What do you want? What are the risks if you don't do anything? So when I go to the doctor, especially when I went for the first time, I said, okay, what are the risks versus benefits of taking hormone therapy? After that, I asked, what are the risks versus the benefits if I don't take hormone therapy? I think that's a really important question too, but nobody seems to be asking. And then what is your gut telling you? Listen to yourself. Sometimes if you're still like, I don't know, it's so noisy, I can't, go find a quiet space, learn how to meditate, go outdoors, close your eyes, and try to feel it. It'll come to you. It'll come to you. So, what are my final thoughts on this? You do you. Honestly, you will find your answer if you look for it. In life, there are no guarantees. And I think the problem that we're having today in society is that death is not an option. Getting sick is not an option. Like, and that's the only thing that's guaranteed in life is death. But we're not allowed to die anymore. We're not allowed to get sick anymore. So that's why we're always looking, do I take this or do I not take this? Do I do this protocol or I don't do this protocol? Because we want someone to guarantee us. But unfortunately, there are no guarantees. And making a decision is important. And so for me, and maybe for you, hormone therapy is just one piece, one tool in my toolbox. I look at strength training, I look at brain training, I look at blood sugar balance, I look at my relationships, I look for joy. All of these things are really important for your health, your mental health, and your physical health. And for me personally, I'm 100% convinced that the hormones that I'm taking are for me. I'm all in. And if I'm wrong, I'll find out. I'll find out later. That's just life, right? There's no guarantees. And I understand that. That's just me. So I invite you to start a conversation with your girlfriends or your boyfriends or your partner or anyone you can talk to about menopause, your own situation. You can always listen, take information in, but again, be the critical thinker. You don't have to do what people are telling you to do, but educate yourself. And if you need help or guidance, you're always welcome to join me and my biohacking besties in the Biohacking Menopause membership group. This is a women's only private group that you're welcome to come to. We meet every single week, several times a week. We have guest experts for live Q&As. So it's always great to bounce off your past, your history, your questions, get a second opinion from doctors, researchers, menopause experts. I'm there for live Q&As. I teach women how to breathe through menopause. I'm a breathwork instructor. I've give all my resources there and a lot of guidance. And we're also having at the end of the month, if you want to join, a blood glucose monitor challenge. So we all buy the little monitors for our little arms and we watch how our blood sugar rises and falls with food, stress, exercise, sleep, et cetera, et cetera. And we share. It's really, really fun to do this as a community. It's a 2-week experiment. You're more than welcome to join. And I'll have links to that in the show notes. And yeah, good luck with your decision. If you need help, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And don't worry, menopause, it's inevitable, but suffering, that's optional.